I was just thinking back to something you told Kramer in April, and that was that we were in wave one of a multi-wave recovery back then. You said Q3 is when things would get really exciting. You said it might be the best back-to-school season of our careers. And I wonder if that is now extended to holiday or if supply chain's gotten in the way.
It has. We actually hosted a global brands conference last week. The number one takeaway by far was the underlying strength of the U.S. consumer that you're seeing. We can actually track it. Here at JP Morgan, we have Chase consumer credit card data, and it is now peaking directly into holiday. We're up more than 20% relative to pre-pandemic levels for overall consumer spending. And that's despite, as you just reported, you're seeing improvement in the underlying lodging and airlines data as well, nearly 20% improvement in underlying travel. And at the same time, I'm seeing my discretionary spending, to your point, out of a very strong back to school that is now peaking all time relative to consumer spending directly into holiday.
So can we take true comfort in the inventory numbers out of Depot and Walmart, or is there a universe of smaller retailers that simply aren't going to have enough for holiday?
So what's happening is demand is exceeding supply. But that said, there's ample inventory on hand that I think we end up seeing the best holiday. Again, you know, as you said, for back to school, I think it follows directly through to holiday, the best holiday that we probably see in our careers. We published a piece this morning. We see 7% same-store sales. It's nearly double for our coverage across apparel, footwear, and accessories. And I think what you're going to see is a number of key themes that you've seen for the last 2 years. Casualization, very strong. Denim has an underlying cycle that I think is multi-year, and I think accessories is very well positioned. But to answer your question, I think there's ample inventory. Look, maybe it's not the exact item or the exact SKU retailer by retail, but as a whole, I think you're going to see very, very strong consumer numbers coming out of this holiday.
Matthew, based on your channel checks, do you feel like the supply chain bottlenecks have loosened a bit in recent weeks?
So it's a really, really good question, because we just met with over 20 retailers, and what they're saying is production is not as much the concern at this point going forward. Our internal Southeast Asia checks are actually pointing to nearly 90% of production is now resumed coming out of November. So I think the production out of Vietnam, that peak concern and uncertainty has passed. I think now it's much more tied to the cost of transportation, which our analyst here on the transport side actually cited this morning, that they believe that come the back half of 2022, he believes that we will start to see much more of a normalization on that front too. So I think you have a margin catalyst on the horizon tied to price increases that the retailers are passing through, freight that I think is transitory, and production, which I think is nearly fully ramped at this point.
Matt, you like an awful lot of names. You got overweights all over the place. I guess the question is that how do you prioritize?
Yeah, great question, Carl. Couple themes. So as I said, the mega trend I think coming out of this holiday and into next year is casualization. That's two-pronged. So it's active, which would be Nike, Lululemon, Under Armour. It's also denim, which would be Levi's, and for us, American Eagle. I think theme number two is at brick and mortar, it's all about value and convenience, especially with the inflation that I think is running through for the middle to lower income customer. That would be dollar stores, Dollar General, Five Below, as well as off-pricers, Burlington, TJX, and Ross stores. And then lastly, as I said, you have this move towards e-commerce that, to me, it's transformational for the global brands. I think the majority come out with higher margin profiles, but for the accessories companies, Tapestry and Capri, that's where you've seen the biggest change relative to pre-pandemic that I think is here to stay.